Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, we're frisky today, Tom.
Heisers.
Heisers. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
My name is David Bell.
I'm Tom Ryman.
And we just played The Last of Us.
Part 2. Part E.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Everything I have found here, I've not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts I've no need for any more, 'cause I believe, and I believe 'cause I can see our future days of you and me.
Okay. So, I mean, there's a few things coming out this weekend, but this felt like a long time coming. I know the small beans just covered this.
Mm-hmm.
But what's, we're us, me too, us too.
Us as well.
Us as well.
Now us.
Yeah, it's going to be filled with spoilers for the game, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So if you haven't played the game yet, don't listen.
Yeah.
Or if you have, or you don't care about
spoilers,
or you're not planning on playing it, then listen. Yeah. Continue to listen. Listen ahead.
Tom, what did you think of The Last of Us 2?
I liked it a lot. I had the same, to a lesser degree, I had the same issue that I did with the first game, where I felt like the gameplay got in the way a little bit, but the gameplay, I think, was more tight. It was more refined in this version, in this sequel.
This is one of the few... Yes. I definitely want to talk about the gameplay, because I think, obviously, when you talk about The Last of Us, people often not talk about the gameplay. Mm-hmm. It's the least... It feels like the least important thing.
It is. It is.
But in this case, I would say the gameplay got really good for me in this one. Much better than the other one. I agree that there's... you get to this point by the end and they're like, oh, spores. And you're like, oh, fuck, I know how to do this already. Just
I don't want to do another. Yeah, the game is about an hour or two too long.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I get annoyed with AAA games that are scared to be like under 10 hours.
Right, and I would argue that this game, story-wise, is supposed to drag on. That's sort of the point of the story. But the moment I get to, where are they? Palm Springs or something?
No, it's
Daytona,
like Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita.
Something
like that.
It's one of
the
that.
Warm places.
I forget. It's on the west coast of California.
Yeah, the moment you're Ellie and you get there, and I was just like, I had been playing at that point also for about 8 hours that day, because I rushed through. I shouldn't say I rushed through this game. I put a lot of hours into this game.
The game grabs you, yeah. Like until I finished the game, I could think about nothing else. I was like, I need to finish. I need to see what the story is. I need to see how it ends.
Yeah, and I had a day off. Not even a day off. I had a span of time where I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do nothing but play this game. And I did it for 8 hours, which I didn't realize until after that I played the game for fucking 8 hours like a real asshole. And I got there, and I had to go to bed. And it was very frustrating because it was the moment she's like, clickers or whatever. And you're like, fuck's sake, like, just get me from A to B now.
And they introduce a whole new gang in that last section, too.
I get why they did it. But, like, I get the purpose of it. I think that could have been shortened a little bit. I don't think it needed to be another level. We got right to the end, but...
We did, but...
Yeah, I know why they did the narrative decision to add more, because it's sort of like, yeah, and there's always going to be fucking maniacs. There's always going to be these people.
The game,
there's always going to be an other.
Right, the game says a lot about that, about how just by virtue of creating a group or joining a group, you immediately create others.
Yeah. And they always seem like the evilest motherfuckers. And it's an empathy simulator, this game.
Yeah, it's like you come from like where Ellie is from in, I forget what they call it, in their community in Colorado, where it's a community. Yeah. And they invite people to join and stuff. It's not like a group.
Right.
But then you go into Abby's group, which is like this highly militarized and very regimented group. That is immediately at war with another group simply because they're another group.
Well, what? Okay, I think this. Yeah, I think this game says a lot about how societies form, or like an evolution of society, is that you start in a very evolved group because they're comfortable, they're safe, they have supplies, they figured it out. They're a little more isolated. And as you play the game, you're introduced to less and less advanced versions. The Fireflies being like I think they're like the promised land. They're like, those are the people who have it all figured out.
Kind of, sorta. The Fireflies are still, because they were a revolutionary group, right? They were like a rebellion against what do they call it? Not government. They call it something like that.
Yeah.
The government from the first game, which turned the nation into a police state because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I would argue that every apocalypse film is The Land Before Time, because, like, format-wise, would you agree with that? Or a lot of them are.
They're trying to get to a promised land, yeah.
Yeah, it's a start with profound loss of a main character, some sort of disaster. There's a threat chasing them or pursuing them. A group of people who don't like each other learn to cooperate because of survival, and they're trying to get to a promised land.
Yeah.
The Land Before Time is one of the best apocalypse films.
It is, yeah. It's extremely straightforward, and yeah, pretty much. Like, that's Fury Road. That's The Road. That's both Last of Us games. That's season 1 of The Walking Dead. That's right. Yeah, you're right. That's virtually everything. Yeah,
and I think that's here, but it's not like the theme. Like, they're not trying to get to a promised land in this one. In fact, The Last of Us 1 is about them trying to get to a promised land, getting there, and Joel rejecting it.
Yeah.
So they definitely subvert that. In this one, it's just that, like, you start in where is it, Colorado, and it is the promised land. It's the place.
Haven, I think, is the name of the community.
Yeah, and as you meet the other communities, they just get more and more rough. They have more and more primitive problems. You know, like the next was it the wolves?
Yeah, the wolves. That's Abby's group.
Yeah, and they're like, they sort of have their shit together, but they're militarized.
Right, and their leader is kind of cracked.
Yeah. He's Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright, yeah.
The only, like, star, I would say.
Yeah, Yeah, he's definitely the biggest name, and like Patrick Fugit plays Owen, but he's not he's not a huge star like Jeffrey Wright is.
Yeah, it was interesting that they did that because I feel like this is a game that avoids stuff like that, but I love how they used him because he's not really in the game.
Jeffrey Wright? No, he's only in 2 scenes.
Yeah,
he's a character that you hear about a lot. So by the time you finally meet him, you've heard so many things about him, and you already have sort of formed an opinion about him.
Yeah.
And he's not as like, it's hard to describe. Like, you're sort of set up to believe he's extremely ruthless, and he is, but like not in like an overly cruel way. I don't know quite how to phrase it. He's not exactly what you expect when you meet him. He's sort of soft-spoken and resigned. He's a Jeffrey Wright character.
Yeah, he's a Jeffrey Wright type. But yeah, you have so this is what I found interesting is you have the Haven, and it's like a city. They've set up a town. There's buildings. It's like an actual there's shots. They do the thing where you walk out and you're walking around, and like it could be just a small town in America without a zombie apocalypse. Their base
is a stadium.
Well, no, I was saying that the first group. Then
Haven.
And then the Wolves, their base is a stadium. It's a less organized structure. You know what I mean? It's not a town.
It's not less. It's not less organized, but it's not a community.
Yeah, it's less set up like an actual.
It's a
city.
military barracks. Yeah.
Yeah, but it has like a shanty town. The geography, and then the scars. That's what they're called, right? Yeah.
They call themselves something else.
Yeah.
I forgot, but
and then we go into them, and they're actually a more advanced society. They're in terms of their infrastructure.
They're an actual. They're like Shyamalan's The Village. Like, they're an actual village. They have farms and stuff, and they reject technology, except their fighters can carry guns, which one of the characters calls them out for that.
Yeah.
I think Abby does.
But they're socially much more primitive. And then we go finally to the final people, and they're fucking biblical.
They're just maniacs.
Yeah. And so, like, it's neat. It's like, I think it was a conscious effort and they're also just in a mansion. Like, they're very small. So we're watching, like, these budding societies in reverse, like, de-evolving through these groups.
If you will. De-evolving as though they were Dennis Hopper being shot by the Super Scope 6.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be an accident. Like, I think they're saying a lot of stuff about societies and how they would reform during this.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought a lot about it.
The Rattlers, who are the last group, are like just these jackfuck crazy dudes. I don't even know what their deal is.
I don't think they know what their deal is.
You're introduced to them at in the last hour of the game. They keep some zombies on leashes. It's not clear why.
Right, but you get the gist where you're like, I get it. They're fucking maniacs.
Yeah, they're just maniacs. They trap Ellie, and they're like, oh, good, we got a live one. I don't know what they're gonna do to her.
Yeah, they're just.
It seems like maybe they eat people.
Yeah.
You find a note that says something about like mailing steaks to somebody's mom or something, and it's like, well, they don't have any livestock,
right? You gotta get your meat somewhere. They have a lot of
people in cages, but they don't have any livestock. But then it also, if that's the case, then why do they crucify Abby?
Yes, yeah, they're just weird maniacs.
Their group doesn't. That's like my biggest complaint of the game is I think I didn't have the thought that you just put forward, and I have a little more respect for that narratively now, but I feel like shoehorning in another group of people in the very end of the game I thought was kind of sweaty.
Yeah, I thought the idea was, because the game does this thing, which I guess we should talk about what the game is about, because it's at the top of at the beginning of the game, the main character Joel, and I didn't have this spoiled, but I certainly wasn't surprised, is killed.
Yeah, I fully expected him to die. I was surprised that it happens right away.
Oh, see, I was like, "What? There has to be an inciting incident," and it was no better way.
They had pushed the game, like they said, Ellie's on a quest for revenge for her lover. Like they deliberately misdirected in some of their. So I was expecting Dina to die.
Yes, that crossed my mind. I think it was that. I guess it was somewhat spoiled because all I knew about it was that nerds, like male nerds, were angry. So
I just figured they were angry because you play as a woman.
Oh yeah, that could have been
play as a woman who is a lesbian. I was like, gamer bros are gonna hate this shit,
right? And there's a trans character.
There is, yeah.
Which
played by a trans actor.
Oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. But like I don't know. I was like, what could have pissed gamers off even more because it felt like it was really intense.
It is specifically towards.
Oh, they must have killed Joel.
Yeah, they killed Joel and most of the vitriol, and it's. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about it, but like
no,
it's all against the actress who played Abby.
Yeah, of course.
And like, there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, that's impossible. Women don't look like that." Like, because Abby's like built. Like,
oh, I love her transformation because she's like,
that's so sad.
They don't explain why she's swole, and I'm like, it's the zombie apocalypse. Of course she's swole.
Of course she's fucking swole. Yeah. And then you see why she's swole is because she lives in a military compound where they get 3 square meals and there's a fucking gym.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. I mean, she could have been swole anyway because, like you said, it's the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
What else are you gonna do but like fight to survive and have 0% body fat?
Right.
But like, she's not even that jacked. So it's like, it was like the response really boggles my mind. Where there's all these, not all these, but like there's enough angry dudes being like, "Oh, women don't look like that." It's like, fucking dude, I've seen women that are more built than her. Like,
yeah.
She's jacked, but she's not like Hulk Hogan. Like,
yeah. Like you said, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Other than like, all this game does is have different, more diverse spread of humans.
Yep,
that's it.
That's it. That's all it does.
Yeah, and it's not like it doesn't stick it in your face. I don't think it's political about it. I don't think it's like, oh, deal with it.
It just is. Like,
yeah, it deals with a trans character being ostracized by extremely fundamental, like a really religious, like a generic religious. I don't know.
They have a new prophet. It was some lady that was like part of their cult, and Jeffrey Wright killed her, which was stupid because it turned into a religion and it turned into a huge war between the two of them, and then they had a peace, and then it got. But yeah, there's the character is a trans boy, and he shaved his head, and that's a no because he was supposed to be married off to somebody. To some dude in the community or something, and he was like, "No, I'm not. That's not me." Like,
yeah. And again, it's not really. I don't know. The point is that
they don't rub it in your face. They give you the bits that are there. Like, I forget his name, but he asks Abby because
honestly, even if they did like quote unquote rub it in your face, even if that was the point,
right? Yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
Right. It's an interesting part of the story. It's because the game is all about empathy and empathizing with you. It's like the people understanding that the people who are your enemies are human beings.
Yeah, there's two sides to it. I'd say is that like on one side it would be nice to have like trans characters who are just characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that needs to be in games. In the other hand, this game is specifically about otherism and like people understanding each other. Yeah. And so it makes sense to have a very diverse spread of people, of backgrounds, and them all trying to come together in weird ways. So like it serves the plot in an organic way, but it also I don't think needs to, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I want to rephrase when I said rub it in your face.
I know what you were saying.
The game is not preachy about it at least in a way that's like I mean, it just is. They're just these characters. This is just who they are. Like it's
Yes. They do a very good job with that.
Yeah, they don't really draw attention to it. I mean, the most is drawn to the trans character, but it's very quickly like you understand immediately what has happened.
I would also argue that like the trans people I know in my life who I've known over the years, obviously they're just people, but part of their background, a lot of the time, a lot of trans people I know had some sort of issues with their family over it. Like it's a very real problem that they face.
Yes.
So including it in that character is like it's like it would be it's a debate. It's about storytelling, obviously, but there's a version of like this person is trans and
their community doesn't accept.
People,
people
have been very shitty to them because of it, and
his
that's a
mom
very
tries
real
to kill
thing
him.
they experience. Yeah, and that's a very real thing they can experience.
Yeah.
So it's a relevant topic
Very much
for
so.
an issue right now because this is I think part of the point because. We should talk about it because it is a theme in it because Ellie experiences homophobia.
She does, from that bartender in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think what they're sort of implying there that I think is very relevant is that those two societies, the primitive religious one and the evolved one, and this is, again, the topic of societies, is that there's certain problems that we haven't evolved.
Correct.
Both.
There's going to be the prejudices haven't
no
gone
matter
away.
what.
It's more severe in a fundamentalist society like the cultists, but it's still there in Haven.
Yeah, and both characters have just as much hate when they react. It's also it's just not ignoring the fact that getting back to a normal society doesn't mean it's actually functional in some ways.
Haven is presented as being extremely functional, but that aspect
in terms
is there.
of prejudices and stuff. It's like, we're back to normal. The hate and all.
Yeah, there doesn't seem it's a pretty diverse community, and we're not shown any instances of racism, but the guy reacts very strongly to Ellie being a lesbian. I think there's
an element of whenever I'd have to play the game again, but like every society is the same. It's just the primitive versions are more obvious about the problems. Does that make sense?
And more violent.
It's everything is a exaggerated version of the same problems because people are people no matter what.
Right. And those prejudices exist, and it's a
civilized society still victimizes people in a more civilized way. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's more buttoned up.
Yeah,
but it's still there.
Yeah. So we should talk about the game, right?
We should.
The gameplay.
I mean, if we want to. The story is the more interesting part, but we can talk about the gameplay.
Well, all right. I story-wise, for people who don't know already, is Joel dies. You play as Ellie, getting revenge for Joel's death, and it's like big shocker. Joel died in a very violent way, and he's killed by a group of people.
It's pretty awful when it happens.
Yeah, he's killed by a group of people, and there's a main woman who does the killing blow and is clearly very angry. You go to Seattle with your girlfriend, who turns out to be pregnant. And
by oh god, what was his name?
I don't know. I liked his role in this.
Yeah, he was. Oh, I'm gonna look him up.
He was like a real dumbass kind of, like a happy dumbass, and I loved him. And they treat him in a way where it's like, when he gets, spoilers, shot in the face.
He gets shot right in the face, and it's incredibly abrupt.
They love that shit. They love that. You're just like, oh no, like because he's not a bad person.
No, not at all.
He's a very nice person.
He's a decent guy. Yeah, he follows you out there to help. Jesse.
So you go out seeking revenge, and you're following Joel's brother. I forgot his name.
Tommy.
Tommy, who's kind of ahead of you, so you see his carnage.
Yeah,
and
he leaves, like, Ellie is like planning to go with him, but he leaves a day early and tells his wife, who is like one of the big people in the community, to prevent her. Like he goes without Ellie to try to keep her from, putting herself into the situation.
Yeah. And it's classic video game stuff. You're fighting a nameless, or not nameless, a faceless group called the Wolves, and it's your classic, you gotta hide and kill them off, and they have guard dogs, and I don't want to kill the dogs, but, we've been doing that since Wolfenstein, so you get used to it.
Yeah.
You kill some dogs, and you kill some henchmen, and they're all like, what's that noise? And you throw bottles, and you murder, you throw bottles, murder. Zombies.
What's interesting in this one, and it becomes a huge thing when the game shifts perspectives.
Yes,
is that when you kill people, and even when you kill some of the dogs, the other people will cry out their names.
Yes, they will. Also, when you kill people, and I love this, is that, and I think the first one was like this too, but this one felt more, is that in a video game where you go behind someone and stealth attack, in Assassin's Creed, it's like, shh, and then they're down. And this one, it's like, grab their mouth, struggle them to the ground, slowly puncture their neck, they twitch, they gasp for life, and then they die. And you're like, man, I didn't feel great about that.
Yeah, I don't feel good about that at all.
And so, you're pursuing these people one by one, and it brings you to an aquarium, and it feels endgamey, not completely, but it's escalating, and you go to this abandoned aquarium.
Yeah,
and you're pursuing them.
It's really escalated at that point, because you're glossing over where she tortured a woman to death in the hospital.
Oh yeah, she sure did.
And Ellie has been changed by this event.
Yeah, her search for revenge is making her a very dark person.
Right. This game is about empathy. It's also about the cycle of violence.
Yes. And her pregnant girlfriend the whole time is at this movie theater, kind of hoping. It's like we need to go home. I'm pregnant. I don't feel good, and it becomes like, I'm just gonna find Tommy.
Right, yeah, we'll find Tommy and then we'll leave. And Tommy's apparently going to be, she goes to the aquarium because that's where Abby's supposed to be.
Right, and there becomes this moment, and there's a moment where they're like, Tommy's that way. And she's like, yeah, but we know he'll be there. And it's very clear she just wants to get to the aquarium,
right,
where she can seek revenge. She wants to get in the revenge while getting Tommy.
Right. She's paying it lip service. She said she's going to find Tommy. She really just wants to kill Abby, because Abby's the one who beat Joel to death.
Yeah, and she's abandoning her girlfriend for this goal. She leaves her at a movie theater, just lie here on this couch. I'll be back. And so she's a real scumbag about it, and
yeah,
she
does descend into some scumminess in this game.
And I mean, that's sort of the point, is that Ellie starts the series as this happy-go-lucky teen, as happy-go-lucky you can be.
She's not happy-go. She's grim.
No, but in the apocalypse, I'd say she's cheery as can be. She's naive, I guess. She's
maybe she's
learning about the world in the first one. You know?
she has a little bit of naivete, sure, but she's pretty grim in the first game.
Yeah. But she's supposed to be kind of.
But she's a kid.
She's a kid.
Yeah.
She's a kid. She makes jokes. She likes comic books.
She's reading from a dad jokes book. So there's a running gag between her and Joel about telling dad jokes.
She's kind of the comic relief, I would say.
A little. She's very innocent in the first game, and actually she talks about it in this new one. But you actually see her kill her first person in the first game.
Yes. Yeah, and so.
Yeah,
it's a long going transition.
It's like watching. It really felt like watching your kid do something horrible.
Yeah,
in this game, because it's
someone going to war.
Right, we knew Ellie as a child, and now we're watching her as a young adult doing terrible things.
Yeah, and she grows up by the end of this in a bad way. In the way, I mean, it's a real Carl from The Walking Dead situation, I guess. I stopped watching that show. But
Carl turns into a maniac.
Yeah, and
in
I
The
think
Walking Dead.
I think this is a general observation that the apocalypse turns everyone into a bad person eventually. Is the idea.
Yeah, I mean, at the end there, Carl is straight up murdering people.
Yeah,
But
and
Ellie
yeah,
doesn't. Ellie's at least killing quote unquote enemies.
Right. It's a familiar territory.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
So you go to the aquarium and you see this man and a woman, and you're asking them, I think at gunpoint, where Abby is.
Right, she's forcing them to independently point to her map where
Right, she's
Abby
doing the-
is, and she's like, it better fucking line up,
Yeah.
or somebody's getting shot.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we already kind of know who they are. Like, we know that they're character names. Like, so we know that that's Owen and that's Mel.
Right.
Owen tries to take the gun from Ellie, and she shoots him in the fucking heart.
She sure does.
And then Mel tries to stab you because you've just killed her friend,
Yep.
father of her child. She tries to stab you, but Ellie wrestles the knife away from her and stabs her in the neck. And then she goes over to Owen, who is dying, and steps on his hand and is like, "Tell me where Abby is." And like Owen, in his last breath, says the word pregnant.
Yep.
And Ellie realizes that she just stabbed a pregnant woman to death.
Yep.
And she breaks the fuck down.
Right, and this is your character. Oh, also, while you're sneaking up on them, a dog attacks you, and you stab the shit out of that dog.
You do, yeah.
And so
It's Alice.
yeah, and I like the way we're already talking about it in a way that spoils what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they don't present it up into the moment that it reveals this woman's pregnant. They present it as like, it's dark. But
Yeah.
it's like there's still just the others. You've killed dogs at this point.
Right,
You know?
there was another dog, and
Yeah, bear?
Bear. I started
Yeah.
thinking about it when that happens. Like, you get attacked by another dog, and when you kill it, somebody shouts out, "Bear! Oh no!"
Yeah.
So it put the seed in my mind. I was like, I feel like I'm going to
Yeah.
learn who these characters are.
Yeah. It was like, well, they also put the scene in the very beginning where you play as Abby.
Play as Abby, yeah.
And
when
so
she
that-
runs into Joel and Tommy.
Yeah, that was definitely. But I remember when I started playing it as Abby, and I'm not a genius, but at least I don't think so. I sort of sensed she was the villain because I was like,
I knew immediately.
Oh,
I
you're
knew
playing as
immediately
the
what she
villain.
was doing. Yeah, I'm like, oh, she's here. She's hunting down Joel. Like, I assumed
But-
she was a Firefly that was.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's only because of knowing video game tropes. Because I think
Yeah.
of one of the Assassin's Creed, you start as the villain and you don't realize it. It's a very traditional video game thing to be like, oh, isn't that we blew your mind? You were the villain,
I think that's 3, right?
right? And so knowing The Last of Us, I was like, oh, this is the villain, and they're trying to subvert stuff. And I thought, like, yeah, by the end, we're going to have some sort of empathy for this character because I'm playing as her. I didn't realize they were going to do what they did. And
Yeah, you're going to spend about 8 hours playing as Abby.
yes. And they do this thing throughout the game where they're like, Seattle, day 1, Seattle, day 2. And that's another thing that, like, in retrospect, it's like, oh, of course I know why they're doing that. The levels were days, which I think The Last of Us 1 did seasons.
I think so, yeah.
So it didn't seem that out of the ordinary, but what they were doing was establishing a timeline because you stab this pregnant woman, you go back to the theater, you're very broken, and Abby shows up. She shoots your friend right in the fucking face.
She shoots Jesse. Yeah, she's got Tommy.
She's got Tommy. She looks at you and says, like, why did you kill my friends?
She says, she's like, I let you guys live and you wasted it.
Yeah. And then, bam, realization we're halfway through the game. Game rewinds back to 3 days, and you play them as Abby.
Yep.
And you spend, like you said, like 8 hours.
About 8 hours is Abby. Yeah.
It felt like half the game.
It is half the game.
Slowly, like learning this woman's story that is, of course, even more harrowing and more reflective of the first game. She becomes like a Joel type character.
She is, yeah, she's very much Joel.
Yeah, and she's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And you spend the game slowly getting to a point that you get all the way back to that moment, And when you hit that moment, you're like, well, fuck, I don't want any of these people to die now.
Yeah, the last scene, the last fight where you're playing as Ellie and you're fighting Abby, and Abby's like emaciated as shit because she's been crucified for a couple of days.
Yeah.
The end of that fight, where you get the upper hand and you start to drown Abby. Like
so good.
She is drowning. You're killing her. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't look at the screen while it was happening.
Because it was too erotic, right?
Right? Yeah. No, I had a huge boner. No. It was like at that point.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. No. It was because you had connected so much with her at that point, and you really like her journey. Joel killed her father, basically. Joel, the surgeon that was gonna basically cut open Ellie's brain to harvest what they needed to develop a cure, was Abby's father, and he's the first person Joel kills in the hospital in the first game.
I love how they did this because it's almost funny is where they like cut to Abby and her father, and her father's like, "Hi, I'm saving a zebra. I'm the best man in the world." And then he's like so happy and nice.
And he's like dopily
well,
collecting
I gotta
quarters.
Go. Yeah. And he's just like, I gotta go deal with this teenage girl who's got something in her brain. And you know exactly what it is. So it's just like, oh, you fucking game.
Yeah, you game. Yeah.
And then the moment, there's a moment where when you're playing as Abby at the beginning, they do a similar reveal that you do when you're playing as Ellie, where you walk out into the town and you see the town and children and stuff. They do that with the stadium where you see like a school, and then there's a part where they're like, "Oh, hi, Bear," and it's the dogs,
Bear,
and you're playing fetch.
You get to play cat. You get to play fetch with Bear, and he's just a sweet dog. And then you take Alice out, and Alice is like your stalwart companion for several hours, and then that's the dog that Ellie stabs to death in the aquarium.
Right. I laughed.
Yeah.
Because it reminded me, it reminded me of the Cracked sketch "Who Fucked This Pumpkin," where Katie reveals her pumpkin is Michael Class Act. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And it's just so look up the sketch if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's so slathered on that it's like, "Hi, we're all great people," and I was like, "Oh, you fucking game!"
Yeah.
Like they're like, "Oh, look at these dogs. They're so cute."
My point was, Abby's quest for revenge is no less just than Ellie's.
100%.
And not so you, and then you, after spending so much time with her, and she's helping the boy Lev escape from the cult. So she has become Joel at this point.
Yeah.
Like she, to the point, like he has, like she has a little boy that she's looking after. And it's just, and you're just like, you're just fucking drowning her, and it's like, oh God,
yeah,
please, game, don't do this.
Don't do this. You don't want it to happen.
And she doesn't. Like Ellie has a flash of Joel sitting on the porch playing his guitar, and then looking up at her and smiling, and then she stops and lets Abby go. And it's because at that moment, I think she realized two things. One is that Joel's never coming back, but she exists in her memory forever. Like she'll never lose that. And that also she was about to kill somebody else's Joel.
Yeah.
She was about to take somebody else's father figure and not father figure, because Abby's
a
woman, but her
cycle.
parental figure and protect her away from Lev. Like she was about to do the same thing.
She becomes self-aware, and it's what a scene. Basically you play as Abby.
Oh my God. Like,
the Abby adventure.
I seriously I'm not exaggerating. I looked away from the screen while it was happening. I was like, I cannot watch this.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Because you there's this where they make it so close that you're like, is this really going to fucking happen?
Right. They really take it to as long as they can. Like I thought she was dead. I was like, oh no.
This is such a, just for people who haven't played the game but know pop culture, this doesn't compare, but it's fucking Captain America versus Iron Man, where it's Civil War, where it's like, this is a situation that they can't really reconcile. Like, these two people can't reconcile.
No.
There's no way they can team up and fight people, and but you want it so bad because you've played as both, and that you find value in both of them, and you just want them to go have a beer, but they can't. They just can't.
They can't. They. It's impossible. Yeah.
And the most they can do is not kill each other.
Yes.
That is the nicest thing that can happen. And Abby has already made that decision. Ellie hasn't. And that's what I love about the extra ending. Because basically we play as Abby, and it's a very Last of Us adventure.
Yeah, it's more like the first one.
Yeah, it's its own contained plot. And it's supposed to be. As you meet this boy and his sister,
who they're trying to get away from the cult.
Yeah, and you go on this adventure to try to save them, and the sister gets has to have her arm amputated, so you have to go get medical supplies.
Yeah, that was a horrible scene.
Yeah, you fight. We'll talk. I will have to talk about that, but you go on what I would say is like the real shit, the real adventure, the most exciting and the hardest part of the game.
Yes.
And so by the end of that, your like character is like, man, she could use a fucking break. And then
you're seeing all of her friends getting killed one by one, and they're the people that you've killed as Ellie.
Yes.
And then even that what's his name? The guy that spits on Joel when he dies. He's the
Manny?
Manny, yes, Manny. You spend a lot of time with Manny, and it's like you fucking hated him in the beginning of the game. Like, you hated all of them in the beginning of the game, and then it's like you spend so much time with Manny, and like he's like a funny guy. Like, his dad has dementia. He's trying to look after him, and like, and you get into a boss fight with Tommy because Tommy's a sniper from, however many miles away, and just kills Manny dead instantly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, shoots him right to the face.
It's funny because I knew what the game was trying to do immediately. But there's definitely a little resistance when you start playing as Abby. And the game does this thing where you think like, oh, okay, we're just going to like kind of blow through Abby's stuff. And then once they start giving you like, oh, no, you have to craft stuff. You have your own system. You have your own collector's items. You realize
the quarters.
It slowly dawns on you like, oh, I think I'm going to be playing her for a while. I better fucking get comfortable. And like, it's that moment where when they switch to I felt like, yeah, I get it, game. I get it. Empathy. I get it. This is very cute. Very cute. Bring me back to Ellie.
But they make you live as Abby.
By the end, when you switch to Ellie, you're like, oh right, Ellie. And they also do a good thing. They make Abby have kind of cooler weapons.
She has different weapons and abilities. Yeah, the most notable thing, which I thought was an improvement from the first game, is that Ellie can stealth kill anyone. Like, she has a knife that doesn't break, whereas in the first game you had to craft shivs endlessly.
Abby has to
craft the shivs.
Yeah.
But Ellie can make different things. Like, she can make trap mines and stuff that Abby can't make, but Abby has different weapons. Like, there's enough differences between the two characters that it's a cool switch.
It's also really cool because you play the first half as Ellie, slowly leveling up your abilities, and you're like, oh, this is cool. I can plant bombs and stuff like that. And what they do is Abby faces off with Ellie twice. The one you described, drowning, but when you play as Abby and you get to the theater,
you have a
face
boss
off
fight
against
with Ellie.
you fight Ellie, and she's using all the same bullshit you leveled up against you.
You have to get through every single weapon of hers that you built up and crafted,
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, you're right. She is a crafty little squirrel, isn't she?
Yeah.
This is a pain in the ass.
And you can't attack her head on because she'll just fucking machete you to death with her melee weapon.
And she's brutal.
Yeah.
And that's no accident that they did that, obviously, because the idea is that you're slowly becoming such a killer that to others you realize you're a monster.
Yeah, you're a terrifying opponent.
You're a boss.
Yeah, you're a boss. Yeah, that fight with Ellie is you have to sneak around and sneak up on her because you can't take her head on. She has too many fucking weapons.
I won. I beat that because of a glitch. What happened was she was planting a bomb Ellie was, and I got behind her and I attacked her and triggered the cutscene, but the bomb exploded and killed us both. And then when it refreshed, it was in the cutscene.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
That's
that's the last one anyway. You just had to attack her that last time when she plants the bomb. That's like her last quote unquote stage.
Right. Oh yeah, I figured. I technically died and won at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And then Abby beats the fucking Christ out of Ellie.
She sure does.
Yeah.
She makes the decision not to kill her.
She doesn't kill Abby. She doesn't kill Dina either because she's about to.
And then she says she's pregnant.
Well, yeah. Ellie says, please don't kill her. She's pregnant. And then Abby says, good, because Ellie killed Mel, who was pregnant. But then Lev is there, and he says, Abby, what are you doing? Don't do that.
Right.
And she stops.
Yep.
But she's totally, like, I thought she was about to just fucking saw Dina's throat open. Like, I was like, oh,
right.
No.
Oh, yeah. It's bad, because Dina she's awesome.
Yeah, Dina fucking saves Ellie's life by jumping out on Abby, because Abby is punching Ellie's skull into the ground.
Yeah.
Like,
but
she's beating the Christ out of her.
As a character, you're like, Ellie, marry her. She's great. Like, she's so charismatic.
We have to talk about that last stretch and then the game's ultimate ending.
Yes, that's where we're getting to. Because this is the darkness that they bring out, which is that feels like a boss battle as Abby, and then you switch to Ellie again. So you've played as Ellie, then you played as Abby, and you've both connected at this moment. And in that moment, Abby lets them go. And
she tells Ellie, "Don't ever let me see you again." Yeah.
And it pretty much then goes to what feels like an epilogue, which is Ellie and her name's Abby?
Dina.
Dina. Why did I... Abby's fucking...
Abby's
so
the other main
names.
character. Yeah.
I think it's
There's a lot of characters
letters.
in this game. They're living on a farm house that's...
in the mountains.
I assume it's fairly close to Haven.
Yeah, I would describe it as an approximation of heaven.
Well, I got extreme. Did you play the first Red Dead Redemption?
No.
There's a section of the first Red Dead Redemption where you've killed all the original gang, like, you've killed Dutch, and the government has ostensibly let your family go, so you're just living in a farmhouse as John Marston. And you spend a couple of missions where you're just kind of doing mundane stuff, like taking your son hunting and stuff. But like, there's this creeping sense of doom. Like, I'm like, why am I playing this? Like, I know something's about to happen.
Right. Because
and then the government shows up and kills John in a huge shootout. So like, I got huge Red Dead Redemption vibes from this section. I'm like, something terrible is about to happen.
Well, what they do is, it reminded me of Uncharted 4, where they do this a similar thing.
But that's the actual end of the game.
But that's the actual ending. Yeah. And so when it starts, and I think they knew this, when it starts, I thought, oh, cute. They're doing like an Uncharted 4 ending. And then it goes, then they're like, time to wrangle the sheep. And it's like, okay, this is lasting too long. Mm-hmm. It's that. It's so like you're living on this farm and the baby's there and it's just perfect.
The baby is named JJ, which is I assume he is named either Joel Jesse or Jesse Joel.
Yeah, it's like perpetual sunset. The graphics are gorgeous. It's just like, oh, they're living on a farm. They have a baby. They're dancing. They're a perfect couple, self-sustaining, and then Ellie has a PTSD flashback to Joel's death when she's wrangling the adorable sheep.
Yeah, and it's pretty harrowing. Like, Dina snaps her out of it, and she's just sitting there holding the baby, screaming her head off.
Yeah,
like it's real intense.
And so it's clear that it's not done for her, or PTSD is, it's still resonating in her. And then Tommy shows up, and Tommy is not done. He is very bitter, and he is still on this
Right.
on
He's
this
also
revenge kick.
he got smacked in the head and also shot by Abby in that scene. So he walks with a cane and he appears to be blind in one eye at this point.
And I think he's left his wife, or they're taking a break.
They're taking a break.
It's clear that he's in a dark place, and he is like, Ellie, I think I found her. We need to do this, or you need to. And she refuses, but at this point you're like, fuck. Because the game feels like an ending. Mm-hmm. It already felt like an ending, but you play for another couple hours all of a sudden.
Probably about 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah. Ellie leaves. Her girlfriend, the baby.
Yeah, Dina is like, she tries to leave in the middle of the night, and Dina tries to stop her, and it's like real, like Ellie is just like, look, this isn't over for me. I wake up screaming every night, like I have these visions, like I have to end this. And Dina's like, I can't do this with you anymore. Like I can't continue to keep this life. Why don't you just stay here? And Ellie essentially says, well, that's up to you. That's your choice. This is my choice. And
as always, this game is very good at showing two people with conflicting views that are both very valid.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, because it's like, Ellie, it's not over for her. Mm-hmm. Dina wants to move on, but Ellie's haunted by this,
right?
And she needs some sort of resolution,
right? Like Ellie kind of tries to throw that at her by saying, "Well, you got over," like Jesse, who's the father of Dina's baby. Right. It's like, well, you got over his death really quickly and everything that happened to us really quickly. And Dina's like, yeah, I had to take care of this kid. Like,
right. Oh, yeah.
I had to get
Someone
over
has
it.
to. Yeah. Again, Ellie, real scumbag. Real scumbag move, walking out of what is essentially, her wife and kid.
Yeah, abandoning her wife and child. Yeah.
Yeah. So you like, the game is just like, this is where it's like it feels too long, but it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh fuck, here we go again, and you start, and then they cut to Abby,
with Lev in Santa Barbara is where it is. Santa Barbara.
Yeah. And they're like having a great little romp, real adventure.
They're Joel and Ellie.
They're
Joel and Ellie from the first game. Yeah, and they're looking for the fireflies.
Yeah, and they slowly set that up where it's like the Joel and Ellie relationship. It's like a classic video game where you have like a little helper, and it's like, hey, crawl in that hole, help me get through, and it's that. It's a lot of like these two like sort of helping each other, and they find a lead.
At the same time, Ellie has slowly been turning into Joel.
Yes. She's becoming grittier and grittier. Mm-hmm. And so you get captured by what we talked about, these like maniac group.
The Rattlers, fucking maniacs.
And then you go to Ellie, and you're also there, and you're tracking her down, and you essentially have to cut your way through this group to get to Abby, who you end up having to save in order to try to kill. You have to save her first.
It's such a good scene when you find her, like you get to the prisoners, and they're like, oh, Abby tried to escape, so they put her out on the posts. And it's like, it's these poles that used to be a jetty or a I don't know, a dock, and she's just lashed to one. Yeah. And she sees that it's you, and she sees that it's Ellie, and she's just like, oh, it's you. And then you had mentioned before that Abby had already made the decision to not kill Ellie.
Right.
Like, so she sees that it's Ellie, and she just is like, oh, okay. And then she walks over to Lev, and it's like, we have to help me get Lev down, and the boats are over here. Like, she's making it clear that she's not going to try to kill Ellie, and it's just like, whatever you're going to do, man, just do it. Because I'm taking this kid, I'm getting on this boat, and I'm leaving.
It reminds me of being on tilt and poker. When you play poker with a group of friends, if one friend takes a lot of money from another friend, that friend's going to spend the whole game trying to do the same back, while the other friend is like, look, I forgive. Like, because you won. Like, Abby won. She beat Ellie senseless, and then was like, I'm not doing this. And Ellie is on tilt. She's like, no, I'm not done.
Yeah.
You can't declare we're done. So like, it's the cycle has to be broken by the person who lost.
Yes.
That's how the revenge works, is someone has to learn to take the hit.
Yeah, that's how you break the cycle of violence.
Yeah, and that sucks because it means you have to accept being a victim. It's what superhero movies struggle with all the time. It's the idea of, in our society, and this goes into the gun debate. It goes into a lot of things. We almost demonize the act of being a victim.
We do. We make the idea of being a victim like the worst possible thing.
Right. And so there's always that feeling of the seeking out justice. But sometimes, sometimes you're the victim of something, and you have to deal with that, and society has to help you with that. And, we need to emphasize compassion. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here, is that they refuse to be the loser.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get to the boats, and then the drowning sequence we talked about, Ellie eventually lets her go, and then we have Ellie coming home again.
Not after Abby bites 2 of her fingers off.
Yes.
That's important.
That is important, because we haven't talked about the fact that throughout this game, you could pick up and play guitars. And Joel wrote you a song.
He did.
And you kind of threw out, because Joel is very much a part of this game. His memory,
You play a lot of flashback sequences too. Like Joel's he gets killed early on, but he's still a major character.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the cliffhanger of the first movie yet. There's so much. But
that's true. That was a real surprise to me.
How they handled it?
Well, the cliffhanger of the first game is that Joel learns that they're going to kill the process of getting a cure out of Ellie will kill her. And even though Ellie said explicitly, like, I'm happy to die for this, I want my life to mean something. Joel is like, nope, fuck that. Like, he makes the decision for her, kills everybody in the hospital, takes her out, and takes her back to Haven and tells her, yeah, they couldn't find a cure, so I just took you out. So you knew going into this game that was going to have to be reconciled somehow. What surprised me is that Ellie already knows.
That's the twist. The twist is that you're waiting, because Joel dies, and you know that Joel told Tommy. Mm-hmm, so you're waiting. You're waiting to either have Ellie find out from Abby, and it's the classic Hollywood idea.
Yeah.
Would be Ellie finds out, and it ruins her sense of revenge.
Yes.
It makes her memory of Joel complicated. The twist is that the whole time you were playing, you already knew.
She already knew. Yeah.
It's one of it happens right before, like, the last scene with Joel is Ellie deciding to forgive Joel, or try to forgive Joel, the night before the game starts.
The night before the game starts, yeah. It's the night where Dina kisses her in the bar, the guy makes the homophobic remark, Joel fucking appears out of nowhere like a falcon and shoves the guy, and Ellie gets mad at him because she's like, look, you can't keep trying to protect me.
Right, and she, at this point, already knows, because she seeked out the Fireflies.
Yeah, she went back to the CDC like the year before.
Yeah.
So she's known for a year, and her and Joel's relationship has been weird, but they have a talk on his porch that night after it happens. We learn that Joel is woke, and that's nice.
Yeah. Woke Joel.
Woke Joel. Because he's like, is Dina your girlfriend? And she's like, I don't know. And I don't know, it was just a kiss. I don't know. She's drunk. I don't know what's going to happen. And Joel's like, well, she'd be lucky to have you.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, that's nice. It's nice that Joel is not homophobic.
Yeah. A little woke Joel.
Woke Joel. But then, they have this conversation where Joel tells her, look, I understand why you're upset at me. But I would do the same thing. If I was given the chance to do it again, I would do the same thing, because he
right, because because the game doesn't have multiple endings, so you can only play the
exactly right. You can only do the same thing. No,
it's like, look, I'm predestined. I'm a video game character.
Man. This isn't
fucking Fable or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. This isn't The Witcher 3 with multiple endings. No, it's because he's essentially assumed the role of her father, and he's like, I would never be able to do that.
And again, you understand both characters' perspective.
Yep, you do. I still think Joel was wrong, but people have argued that up and down already. Yeah. And Ellie is still stuck on, I've wanted my life to mean something, and now it doesn't mean anything. And Joel's like, well, that's not necessarily true. Like, it could still mean something. He doesn't say it in so many words, but they end that conversation with, she says, I'd like to start trying to forgive you.
Yeah. And it's like blue balls, because then Joel dies like
he dies
the
the
next
next
day.
Yep.
And so like the healing is starting to begin, and Joel's dead. And so it emphasizes her need for revenge of like, you cut this off in a very important place.
Yeah.
And so that's like, that's what the flashbacks, and throughout you're playing guitar, and that's like one of the things Joel left you.
Yeah, he teaches Ellie how to play guitar, and he left you a guitar, and then Ellie is like, I'm going to teach JJ, the baby, Dina's baby, how to play guitar.
Right. But
and
this is, man, she goes back to the farmhouse at the very end.
Dina and the baby are gone. The entire house is empty.
Except for like Ellie's room.
Except for Ellie's room, yeah.
My fucking God. I'm getting like weepy thinking about it. She goes in the room. There's Joel's guitar. She plays it one last time. And then she leaves.
The thing is she can't really play it.
Yes, because she's missing fingers.
She can't play it, and she won't ever be able to teach JJ how to play guitar.
Yep.
So she leaves the guitar in the house and leaves. So she finally lets Joel go, basically.
Yeah, in a very depressing way.
It's very sad. Yeah.
She lets Joel go, but she also lets go the thing she was seeking in that conversation with Joel, which is her life to have a meaning.
Yes.
She kept saying, I wanted my life to have a meaning.
Yeah.
And she lets Joel go, and she's like, now that quest can finally begin. Because I think the idea is that her seeking of revenge was what she thought was going to give her life meaning, when obviously this woman and this child was the actual thing that she threw away in order to go over this false meaning.
Yeah.
And at the very end, it's the realization of like, avenging Joel, that wasn't the thing you do for his memory. It was this guitar.
Yeah.
It was there the whole time.
Yep.
It was these people were there. You never had to leave.
Yeah, you could have stayed. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about it that way, but the fact that they pepper the guitar throughout the game, you're right. It's just like, this is it. It's right here in front of you.
Yeah. The moment when which is, I thought this was a bold choice. There's a scene that you can pass by if you're not paying attention when you're in that city and you're riding around, where if you stop at a music store, go upstairs, you play guitar and it's a really sweet romantic moment with the two of you, and it's again the game being like, this is it, like this is what you should be doing.
Yeah. It's that memory of Joel that stops her from killing Abby. It's like, this is how you this is how you honor Joel's memory.
Right, he would have wanted none of this.
Preserve his memory. Yeah, he continues to live in your mind, and then you pass it on to other people. Like you teach the baby how to play guitar.
Right. But again, it's this PTSD. She can't.
Yeah, she can't do it.
It's not that she's a flawed character. She is and she isn't. It's this that you're like, she's damaged.
Yeah, she's flawed, but it's in like you said, it's in a totally understandable way.
Yeah, in a way that we all would have been in that situation.
Like, at the beginning of the game, we're all like, fucking get them, Ellie, go kill those motherfuckers.
Yeah. And so it's like, God, what a fucking story.
Yeah. It's great. That ending is devastating.
Right, and I suspect this is the last we'll see of Ellie.
Probably.
And that's fucking dark.
Yeah, because it's unclear. She just walks off into the woods. It's unclear whether she's going back to Haven or whether she's just going to go out on her own.
Yeah, I'm guessing she'll go back to Haven, but like,
I'm not sure.
I'm not. Yeah, it isn't sure because it's. I mean, that's the point of the ending. Mm-hmm. It's just because if there's another game, I'm assuming it's going to be Abby's story.
I don't know. There shouldn't be.
Yeah,
or if they make another one, it shouldn't be from these characters' perspectives.
I think the producer, that Hollywood producer perspective of like, yeah, we got to keep making them. I think they were pleased with the introduction of that character where they're like, oh, there's a clear through line to the next story if we make one, which is that we tell their story now, right? Mm-hmm. And we're done with Ellie. Yeah, I agree that they shouldn't make another, but it's games.
It's games,
so, yeah. And I'm sure if they make another, it'll be great. It's like Pixar, where you're like, oh, you're making a Toy Story sequel? Why are you doing that? And then you watch it and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
I see why you did this.
Yeah. You figured out something to say. God, this fucking game.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the gameplay.
Not really. It's fine. It's mostly, it's the same as the first one. It's a stealth action game, but it's tighter.
It's tighter and like... I was watching a stream today, and I think people are playing it wrong. Is maybe just this person, but I saw a few streams that were like this. Like, there's a scene where you're like sneaking into the hospital, and you're Ellie. It's when you go to torture that woman
in the hospital. Yeah,
in the hospital. And the person I was watching play was sneaking, and then they got into a confrontation, and they were turning it into a gunfight. And I don't know about you, but I just had a weapon on me at all times and ran and brained people constantly.
Yeah, I rarely used
guns.
I got into a couple of gunfights, but only after I'd substantially whittled down the enemies that were in the area.
Yes.
Like, I got into more gunfights as Abby when she's, like, on the cult island.
Yeah, this feels very much the evolution of Assassin's Creed, which is early Assassin's Creeds. It was like sneak around. You got to don't be seen. You can't be seen. And then in the later ones, it's like, well, if you get seen, you probably figure it out too.
Yeah, who gives a shit? Just beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they like Assassin's Creed is an apt comparison because of the tall grass thing.
Yeah,
which I think is one of the stupidest things in video games now. Which is that like enemies can't see you if you're crouched in tall grass, and it's like, yes, they can. How could they not?
I mean,
I've never been tricked by somebody in tall grass crouching slightly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a game.
It's a game. And well, that's what I was getting to, is that we needed that because I think the first game they made it a little too hard to be stealthy.
Yeah, you had to do so much more stealth in that first game that was a lot trickier, and then also hampered by the fact that Joel had to constantly craft shivs, whereas Ellie just has a knife.
I would argue that they dumbed down the gameplay in a way that was good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't need to do too much of that.
I didn't have to repeat too many sections.
Neither did I. I also... I appreciated the brief open worldness that they did.
Yeah, it's a little like Uncharted 4, where you get to drive around in the Jeep.
Yeah, but even Uncharted 4, like, it's very linear in this. Or, well, Uncharted 4,
this is still very linear, too.
There's little prizes on the way in Uncharted 4, but in this, like, there's a whole through line that you can follow that's not related to... You're trying to go to the parking garage of a museum, a library, courthouse. It's a courthouse, I think.
Yeah.
And you're in this city, and then if you stop and smell the roses, which is very much a thing you have to do in this game, you uncover like a whole bank heist plot, and you get a shotgun, and you get a bunch of stuff. And this game does a great job of rewarding you for looking at every detail.
Yeah.
For reading the notes. Because the notes don't just give you plot, they also are like, by the way, here's a place where you can get some stuff.
Yes.
This is a world of people with safes.
Yeah, everybody has a safe.
Yeah, for some reason. But I love it. I overall really liked the gameplay. I thought there was a nice combination of like rushing around, braining people, shooting, and then going back into sneaking, and like being able to be kind of like a little ninja.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like tense enough and desperate enough that it didn't feel easy.
But it also never felt really hard.
It never felt really hard. Even the Rat King, which we should mention, because I know this is a question. I know Ganser had this question. I sort of had this question when I was playing the Rat King, because you sneak into a hospital as Abby to get medical supplies.
Yeah,
and it's the hospital. It's ground zero. which was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
So you're opening areas of a hospital that no one has looked in since it started, and you find essentially a Rat King zombie, a zombie that's made up of other zombies, and it grabs you and you have to axe it.
You have to. You get a boss fight with it.
It's a boss fight, but I pick out the moment where it grabs you and you swing an axe, and it's like before the boss fight starts. And that moment, I was like, this could be from a Resident Evil game.
Yes.
And so, I guess my question is, do you think from here on that's what's going to happen?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so do you think... Because I can see a world where we're talking about these games when we're on Last of Us 6, and we're like, yeah, those are fun horror games. The first two, I mean, those were incredible.
No, I don't think
and then they just became fun horror games after that.
I don't think they'll go in that direction.
Okay.
I think it's going to stick... If they make more, it'll stick primarily with the stealth action aspect, and continue to be just heavily character-driven.
Yeah, because that felt like it was grazing the line between a Resident Evil game and a Last of Us game.
It was just... I think it was just throwing something at you that he hadn't seen yet.
Yeah.
And it's the only real creature boss fight you have is against this weird Rat King monster.
I loved it. Because it also reminded me something about The Last of Us that I think we forget, is that it is no different than Resident Evil. It's a horror game. At its core, that's what it is, right?
Kind of.
Like, it's... I mean, yeah, kind of is the right answer. It's every second you're afraid of the gameplay. It's tense. Even when it's humans, you're scared of what they'll do to you. The death cutscenes are horrifying. It's branded as a horror game. It's of that genre. So like you could argue that it's the moment where it's like in its prime, or when it's showing its full genre, is when you're like sneaking around and there's clickers and you're in that hotel with Lev, or like
when you have to go find Lev a mask.
Yeah, you have a flamethrower and you're fighting a Rat King.
Flamethrower was sweet.
Yeah, those are very like classic horror game moments. But it's littered with such wonderful story that we can talk about it for an hour without actually mentioning gameplay.
Yeah, I think it's so much of its brand too, and of the Naughty Dog brand. Like Uncharted is, a treasure hunting series, but those games are all very cinematic and story driven. Yeah,
I love the story of those.
The first Uncharted was the first game I played where I was like just trying to get through it because I was like just enjoying it like a movie. I was just like, no, I just want to see what happens.
I do enjoy the puzzles in Uncharted.
I do like the puzzles, yeah.
This has a little bit of puzzles. They're very organic puzzles.
Yeah.
They're not fun puzzles. Well, they're fine, but they're not like, oh, wow, cool puzzle.
Well, they're not like cool. They're not cool Indiana Jones treasure hunting puzzles.
Yeah. Uncharted 4, the fucking clock tower in the church.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking great. I played these in the wrong order because I played Uncharted 4 recently. And I usually try to play The Last of Us, and then The Chaser is Uncharted 4, where it's like, all right, now The Last of Us, but you're not like
but fun with less consequences.
Yeah,
because everybody turns out okay in the Uncharted games.
I will say, as a gamer, as an epic gamer, everybody was so mad at killing Joel and playing as Ellie, but the game side of me was like, oh, upgrade. Like, I'm not this old bastard. I'm a little, like I said, a little squirrel, crafty little squirrel.
Yeah, Joel's in his fucking 60s in this game.
Yeah. Joel is a pain in the ass to play as. He was huffing and puffing.
Yeah. And then you get to play as like fucking swole-ass Abby, who's in like top shape. It's like, this is great.
Just climbing shit. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts? I laughed when the horse exploded.
Yep.
Yeah.
They just blow
bad.
Your horse up.
Yeah, but they exploded a horse. What do you expect me to do? Not laugh?
Blow that goddamn horse up.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, not really any other thoughts. It's just, it's very good. Very effective story. Very, very, very well done.
Yeah, we've talked about this, I think, before. They're making it at HBO. They're making a Last of Us series.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to fucking Christ, the worst thing they could possibly do is change it at all. Like, same dialogue. I don't give a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
you could literally just make the HBO series the cutscenes from these two games, and I would watch it.
Yes, I would.
And because I think the biggest tragedy is, like, I constantly, like, my parents, my sister, people who don't play video games, I constantly try to, like, explain to them what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you can't sit people down and be like, watch me play this video game for, days.
Yeah, 14 hours, however long it takes to beat.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the big, like, a very real sadness in my heart is that this is inaccessible to everybody because it's such a good story.
Yeah.
It's great. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Of course, Explode, Revenge.
Yep. Explosion Revenge.
Yeah.
Really
classic.
I think a lot of the game people are involved in the HBO show too. So
good. Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Okay. Well, geez, everybody, thanks for listening.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested, you can check out our Patreon. That's patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We have exclusive podcasts there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We have many tiers that you can check out. We watch movies with our patrons every Friday night. As we alluded to, one such movie was the Super Mario Brothers movie. So, look, you want that, right? You want that?
You definitely want that, yeah. Why wouldn't you
Don't you
want
want
that?
to spend your Friday night watching the Super Mario Brothers movie? If it
Yes.
wasn't a pandemic, that would be a lot more of a bummer.
Yeah, no,
But these
it's
days-
like a delightful treat in these
Yeah.
in these trying times.
We really thrive in the pandemic.
we have been.
Yeah.
We also have a store, tpublic.com/stores/gamefullyunemployed. We can get t-shirts, stickers, mugs, posters, all kinds of shit. Check it out or don't. I don't care. You be you, live your life.
Yeah, live your life, get into a cycle of violence.
Live your
and
horse
revenge.
exploding life.
Blow that horse.
Blow
God,
that horse.
I just want to point out, this is not the first podcast that ended with us saying, blow that horse.
No, nor will it be the last.
That's our new motto.
Put that
Gamefully
on a
unemployed.
T-shirt. Blow that horse.